Several years back, the guide had a guest. It was an uncommon situation, but he was told that everything was as usual. He picked up the guest, a German girl, in the hotel. The only unusual request was that he would only guide her, and it would be around a week in the desert. The girl didn't talk much, and he had met this kind of guest before. He didn't mind her. People went to the desert for all sort of reason. Along the way, she instructed the guide that she wanted to go to a certain place. The guide was taken aback because she wanted to go to an empty village. Years ago, this village was just a normal village with activities. However, one day a plague hit and killed most of the people. The survivors left and settled somewhere else, leaving the village to die slowly. As a guide, he didn't have any privilege to say no to his client. He obeyed and took her there. As soon as they arrived, he started to camp and unpack their things while she roamed around. The light was still there, so he didn't mind. There were no one as far as the eyes could see. He started feeding the camels and prepared the fire while waiting for her to return. "Listen, I need to tell you something," said the girl. The guide was surprised because she showed no interest in any interaction. He composed himself and asked her what she wanted to say calmly. "Tonight after dinner, I will go to the village alone. Under no circumstances you can follow me. I will return before the dawn," she said. He wanted to inquire further about other details, but something inside of him told him to shut up. That night she left the camp after dinner as promised, leaving the guide alone by the fire. He tried not to think of her too much as he tended his camels. He couldn't hide the curiosity and the voice at the back of his head telling him to check on her. As the night grew, he decided that he was responsible of this girl, and he would have to check on her just to make sure that she was all right. Although he was worried that he might lose his job, he was more afraid to get into a problem if something bad happened to this girl. Thus he left the camp to the camel and followed the trace of the girl. After some time, he arrived at the abandoned village. He saw a sign of light from the corner and proceeded while ensuring that he was concealed. From behind a rock, he had a full view of her back, and he felt goosebumps at once. "You need to help this. This woman has a demon who wants to make me blind," he said. The chief calmly told him to take a breath, drink some water, and told the whole story. They decided that it would be too dangerous to run away if she has a help of a demon. Other than that, it's not good for him to leave a woman in a desert by herself. The guide started crying and said that he doesn't want to go back to the girl. He was just too scared. The chief then told him to call the hotel. The manager admitted that she had some weird request, but he didn't relay it to him because he forgot about him. She was in this witchery cult and had came to India to get some help from people who died of disease or something like that. He promised that if the guide came back to the girl, he would talk to her and offer another guide. With this promise, he returned to the camp where the girl was there waiting for him. "The hotel manager wanted to talk to you," he said, handing his old phone to the girl. She called the hotel and listened to the manager, but firmly refused. "No, I want him until the end of the trip," she said. The guide was just shaking fearfully at the prospect of spending the rest of the week with her. "I will not harm him, I promise," she said again to the phone. After a while, she handed the phone to him and he spoke to the manager. "Do you want to continue with her?" he asked. "No, I don't want to die. You don't understand. This girl plays with the demon. You don't have to pay me for my service. Just pay for the cost and get someone else to replace me," said the guide. Luckily, the hotel manager understood and he convinced the girl. After a while, the girl reluctantly agreed and they spent the rest of the day in silence. After a while, a camel and another guide arrived. He sighted in relief and packed his camel. He left as soon as possible, leaving the girl with the poor guy. He never looked back, and he was not interested in such an encounter. The sky was completely dark, and we were blanketed by the Milky Way. The guide asked us where we wanted to sleep, and he prepared our bedding out there on the sand. I picked a wrong place, but I had never slept in the desert before. I chose to sleep a little bit far from the camp, although the camels were still herd. I covered my entire body with the blanket and peeked at the full moon until I fell asleep in the makeshift tent made of blankets and beddings. I was hit by the wind, and I sweat something was watching me when I was sleeping. When I tore down the blanket to see who it was, there were no one as far as I could see, and the guides slept soundly next to the camels and the dead fire. I was somewhere in the California desert when my friend's car stopped working. Neither of us had smartphones, and even then, there was no guarantee we would have had a signal. My friend wanted to walk. I said it was a really bad idea. He insisted, and I really didn't want to be left alone for who knew how long without water. So we started to walk, and every so often we looked back in case a car went by. It was perhaps after only an hour we noticed someone off in the distance who appeared to be following us. Friend asked me if we should turn around. I thought this was too strange. We were in the desert while the sun was up, basically in the middle of nowhere. Why would someone else be walking? My friend wasn't entirely convinced and suggested the person might also have a stuck car and be walking in to tow. I pointed out that we had been walking for an hour, and this was the first we had seen of him. It was too monumental of a coincidence that someone could have parked a car on the side of the road and caught up to us this fast. Long story short, we keep walking, but that figure is closing the distance. We were getting genuinely creeped out. We quickened up our pace as much as we dared in the heat, and with every glance back, the man was getting closer and closer. Not exponentially so, but noticeably. We found a truck stop not far off and moved just shy of a jog to sit down and get water from the vending machines. My friend kept watching and pointed out the man was now holding steady and not getting any further away or closer. My friend asked a driver for a ride after calling his motor club to bail him out. Our eyes were on the man, still there. We got the gas and kept our eyes on the man in the distance. The driver didn't see him. The closer we got to the dead car now, the further the man seemed to be. We made it to the car with our pursuer nowhere to be seen. Never saw him again. My friend thinks that was death itself, and had we not gotten to the truck stop then, it would have gotten us. "20 years ago, my older brother and I were 19 and 15 at the time, were working a landscaping job in northern Arizona. We had gotten off work at the site around 7 p.m., hopped into his truck, and started the 45-minute commute home. On the way back, there is a dirt road that leads about 20 miles into the middle of the desert. It's there mainly to take dirt bikes out or go four-wheelin' ECT. But we would use it as a good spot to stop and smoke weed while avoiding prying eyes. So we drive a few miles in and park in between these two hills that hide the truck and us pretty well. We've done this about 30 times up to that point, though never again after that night. We stop, and I commence the ritual of breaking it up to roll. He was talking about something, but I wasn't really listening until I heard his voice change. "Did you hear that?" he asked. We both listened, and I heard a strange, high-pitched, tinny sound for a split second, and then suddenly complete silence. The desert is actually a pretty loud place at night. I remember realizing that when the sound was gone. As we sat there for maybe 5 more seconds, my brother starts the truck and floors it in rapid succession. We're flying out of the desert now, and I'm bouncing like a ball from his reckless driving. I'm asking him, "WTF, man?" as we go, but he says nothing. We hit the street and the lights of a passing car show his face. He is pale and completely wide-eyed with his mouth open. I got scared at seeing so much fear from him and just sat there waiting for him to stop. He finally stopped at a McDonald's parking lot when we got back in town. He started crying. I just pat him on the shoulder and waited. After a few minutes, he asked me if I remember. "Remember what, man? We were in the desert for like 5 minutes before you went flying out like a crazy asshole." He looked at me and started sobbing. He said it had me and he couldn't do anything. He said it took me. At this point, I started putting some things together. It was quiet out, no cars. Looked at one of those billboard clocks and seen it was 11 p.m. My brother told me something had grabbed me through my closed passenger window. He had went for his pistol when he suddenly was froze and couldn't move because the thing told him that if he didn't stay right where he was and wait that I would die and he would be next. He said he felt it in his heart to be true. The thing that had me was true. The thing that had me was very tall and thin with huge black eyes. He says he doesn't remember anything else about it, just tall and thin with huge black eyes. He sat frozen in absolute terror for hours while the thing disappeared with me into the desert. Then suddenly I appeared in the truck and he gunned it out of there. Over the years I've talked to him about it twice. He hates to even mention it. He is ashamed, I think, and still very afraid of it. He changed after this, always seeming to be less energetic and a little withdrawn. I wish it wasn't like that. Wish I could help. I told him he is blameless, and I thanked him for getting us out of there. That's all I could do. I had considered multiple times to get hypnotized to see if I could recover some memories like I've heard other people apparently have. But whenever I think about it, I remember the light flashing over his face and the sheer terror I seen there. Better not to know, I think. A desert is a scary place for me now. It used to be a place filled with peace and serenity, but since living out there for almost 30 years, you see things. This occurrence took place in the high desert of California in the early 1990s. The whole town was once all military. There is a military plant there and a prison, and the streets to this day consist of numbers and letters, for example, Avenue O and 178th Street. You always heard stories of people missing and underground tunnels confirmed. In fact, a friend of mine kept getting a draft coming from his closet in his childhood home. Later, after he grew up, he checked it out and found an opening to one of these such tunnels. He called me over to check it out, but after I got there and we went through the opening, I was too freaked out to go more than 10 feet in when I turned around and told him that this might be how people disappear. You always saw things late at night off in the distance far past the lights of that then small town. Strange, glowing, different colored lights that would move around low or zigzag, then shoot straight up. We saw things in the sky, just stuff you never talked about. Life was pretty carefree back then. If you wanted to visit friends though, you would have to drive down long desert roads and sometimes end up coming home late at night in the pitch black because there were no streetlights. I remember coming home late one night with my boyfriend at the time and another friend, and we pulled over for some reason. Something compelled me to get out of the car and look up to the stars. We were in the middle of nowhere, but we could hear what sounded like machinery and muffled clanks like metal. We all started looking around but didn't see anything. Just then, we felt a vibration under our feet. I crouched down on the street and put my ear to the ground. It was coming from under us. We all listened intently and heard far down voices, but couldn't make out what was being said. We stood up and were discussing what it might have been when we saw a small red light on the horizon, and it was getting closer. We piled into the car and got out of Dodge. We only told a few friends, and they experienced the same thing. A year later, I told a friend that I started a small hauling business. Still, there was a big job, so I needed to borrow a trailer. He said he had a few that I could use, so I should come out to his property to check them out. It was just starting to get dark when he pulled out his new toy. It was military-grade night vision binoculars. He told me to wait until it got dark to leave because he wanted to show me something creepy, and I was all in. Later, we walked towards the back of his property, looking out at nothing. No lights, no roads, nothing but a barren desert. He pointed the binoculars east, and ooh my, there were people out there coming out of the ground and moving around. I said, "What the hell am I looking at?" And he told me that his family called them ground dwellers, and that they are located in various parts of the desert. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. Needless to say, I never went to his house after dark again. At one point in my life, I lived in a mobile home park a little past Avenue F. There was a massive treehouse in my yard that was left by the former tenant. The only way to get up into it was through a hole cut in the floor with a door on it, and under that was a rope ladder. One night I was sitting on the porch drinking a cup of tea when I heard something move up in the treehouse, and then a head popped up. It was a lady and her husband hiding. Clearly I thought they were on drugs. I told them to come down from there, but they both refused. It wasn't until I threatened to call the authorities did they cautiously comply, looking all around not wanting to be seen. By now there was a small group of my friends and nosy neighbors gathering around. I saw that she was terrified by something, so I asked them to come in. I made them something to eat and waited for her to calm down. Then the lady reached in her bag and pulled out some papers, and they looked like legal documents with government letterhead. There were drawings and schematics, and some of them even had embossed seals. I couldn't help but notice that they had water and smoke damage, and a few of them were burnt on the edges. She told me that they were checking out this place off Barrel Springs Road where there were 2 or 3 cinder block structures. I knew them well. A few years back I happened upon that place, and a black truck rushed down to greet me with guns drawn. She said the same thing happened to her, but she was in one of the structures, so she grabbed some things and she and her husband ran. I went over these pages and felt very uneasy reading them, like this was stuff people get killed over if it got out. Stupidly, I said, "Why don't you just simply give them back?" She said they had been running, and everywhere they stop a black car or van with government or no plates, show up with darkened windows and just sit there watching them. Well, I really didn't want to get too involved. Especially after reading what I did, I thought it was too big for little me. I will take what I saw to my death. So I packed them lunch and told them they could sleep in the treehouse for the night. They did, but they were gone early the next morning before I woke up. After that, we started seeing black vans parked on our lonely road facing the house. At one point, I even walked up to one of them, but they took off as soon as I knocked on their blacked out driver's window. I think anyone who has visited Death Valley can agree with me on this. The place gets really creepy, really quickly. I will admit it's a very beautiful and grand landscape. It's a desert valley with massive towering mountains on all sides, which is jaw-droppingly epic, but it also means that the place gets almost no wind at all, and therefore gets searingly hot and dry. For those who haven't been, Death Valley is a really quiet place. During the day, you might not notice what with the tourists everywhere having fun, but at night, you can really tell. It's dead silent, eerily silent. On top of not having much wind, there are no crickets, no owls, no locusts, absolutely nothing. If you've ever been in an anechoic chamber, nighttime in Death Valley sounds exactly like that. It's so devoid of any kind of noise whatsoever, and voices don't echo at all. It's so quiet, you can almost hear your heartbeat. If you don't have access to an anechoic chamber, just go to your closet and put your head in between the clothes. It won't be as soundproof, but it'll be close. Also, being such a remote place, with no physical police station within the park itself, I feel like it's the perfect place for a serial killer to commit a string of murders. That was actually one of my first thoughts when I entered Death Valley. Even in the busiest part of the park, you could be walking around for a late night stroll, and I'm pretty sure someone could easily sneak up on you, slit your throat, and throw your body somewhere out in the salt flats, and nobody would notice until months later. So as wonderful as the park was, I was actually kind of glad to leave. I think 2 to 3 days is the max if you want to visit Death Valley. Any longer than that, and you'll be questioning your sanity. Australian deserts are energetically active. You can feel the energy flowing over the land. These are the song lines of the Aboriginal people. They have sung the land into existence for 65,000 years. In this desert, many magical things happen. We were exploring deep into an area known as the Forbidden City. It looked like a city built out of amazing rock formations. One dark cave up on a hillside called to me. An Aboriginal man and traditional owner was in the cave. We asked which part was it lawful for us to look at. He showed us. Martha's story, then he told us a story about a remarkable healer who came to this cave in 1920. This white woman was a nurse who came to the top end with her husband, who was a civil servant. She had a far-flung territory to help, many miles between patients, few supplies, no antibiotics. This lady, we will call her Martha, came to this very cave. She saw 3 old Aboriginal elders waiting for her. They welcomed her and took her hands, drawing Martha deeper into this sacred cave. Martha described what happened in her notes. I remember feeling sleepy, then I was leaving my body and going with the elders to meet the Old Ones, beings who guided the people since the dream time began. These beings took my hands. They told me that during the time I was nursing their people, I would have the gift of stopping bleeding, of soothing pain, of healing wounds. I could stop infection and clean wounds so infection would not occur. They sent blue and white light through my body. My arms and hands glowed with golden light. Then the whole sky spun, and I woke up at dawn the next day. My husband and a search party found me and made me sweet tea. I never saw the Aboriginal people again. Martha nursed for 5.5 years. She could close wounds by touching them. She saved many lives in remote areas, even though she had to travel days to get there by canoe. Her touch healed. She did miraculous things. When she went home to Melbourne, all these abilities disappeared.